Counties where to put your money. This is a report that ranks the best bets that you can invest in Kisumu, Nyandarua, Kakamega, or Uasin Gishu. And then the richest counties are Nairobi, Nakuru, Kiambu, and Mombasa. And the poorest counties are Isiolo, Samburu, Lamu, Marsabit. Let's begin with that. The New State report on the front page of the Standard says that it's ranking counties by production, and we see that Nyandarua is doing pretty well. That is on page, what page is this?
That's on page 1.
Page 10. Yes, so Nyandarua, Elgeyo Marakwet, Nairobi, and Mombasa are the top. First of all, what Senator Khalwale, you used to sit at the, or rather chair the Public Accounts and Investments Committee, and you might have interacted with some of this, the wealth that is coming from the counties. Correct me if I'm wrong. But how important is this ranking?
I think somebody's just playing with statistics. Mm-hmm. The truth is, from the advent of devolution, mm-hmm. counties have not done better than the defunct local authorities. Because when you look at the revenue collected mm-hmm. by the counties, it has in many counties mm-hmm. Been performing poorer than mm-hmm. what the defunct local authorities were mm-hmm. collecting. Mm-hmm. We have counties that collect probably 60% of what the defunct local authorities were collecting, mm-hmm. and therefore this could just be statistics. And when you look at this report, mm-hmm. people should realize mm-hmm. they are not talking about GDP per se. Mm-hmm. They are talking about GDP per capita. Mm-hmm. So it's not therefore surprising mm-hmm. that a county like Marakwet, for example, mm-hmm. small population, whatever they are producing, mm-hmm. can look like it is richer than Nairobi. Mm-hmm. Far from the truth. When you speak to the GDP, mm-hmm. Nairobi controls 57%. Mm-hmm. But when you now bring in the issue of per capita, because of the high population of Nairobi, mm-hmm. then it looks like Nairobi is not producing as much per person. Mm-hmm. That's it. So this is not an exciting report. Yep. It's academic. Because if you ask me,
an academic report. Because
let me just add by saying, it's a huge joke that you can go to Marakwet and expect that the Marakwet that we know. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with how they live. Mm-hmm. That they are better off mm-hmm. than the people living in Nairobi. Mm-hmm. No way.
All right, because I'm saying that the National Statistician, that is the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, has calculated the gross county product per capita by dividing the total value of all finished goods and services produced in a county by its population. Again, Senator Kajwang, how relevant is this information?
I think we must give credit to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, because this is the first time they're doing a gross county product report. It is inaugural. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of debate mm-hmm. around the basis. There'll be a lot of debate around the relevance, just mm-hmm. as Senator Boni Khalwale has said. Mm-hmm. But it's a good thing that they've done this for the first time. Mm. We have always been struggling when we are doing revenue allocation amongst counties, mm-hmm. because there is a measure on poverty, and we've been using a poverty index, which has been discredited for a long time. This, I'm seeing, is an opportunity to add another dimension or to add another variable to computation of revenue that should be going to counties. Mm-hmm. And because this is inaugural, and because this is something that we probably have not looked at keenly and subjected to debate, even in Parliament, mm-hmm. and I know even the public and national debate mm-hmm. will begin now that the papers have serialized the report. Mm-hmm. I think, unlike Khalwale, who thinks it's academic, I think it is useful and it sets a good starting point for that conversation we have had mm-hmm. from leaders saying that there could be regions that contribute 60% of the country's GDP. And when you look at the numbers that have been presented by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, right. you don't see any region or any county that goes above 22% right. of contribution to GDP. Yes. So it should allow us to have a much more impassionate conversation. We must move away from the conversation we've had in the past, where some regions will feel that they are more important than others as a result of their output and contribution to the GDP. So we'll take time, we'll have to look at this because you know it contradicts very sharply some positions that regions and leaders have taken in the past. So this is a good thing, and let's encourage debate on it.
Well, Senator Wetang'ula, as you respond to that, what determines the productivity of a place is probably the natural resources and the skills that are in that county. And I'm trying to look at the bottom 8 counties: Mandera, West Pokot, Turkana, Wajir, Kilifi, Migori, Garissa, Samburu. Largely, these are the same counties that were marginalized even before devolution. It appears that 6 years down the line, despite devolving power and resources, that is not changing. No,
sure. But allow me to start by making a small comment on what my colleague here has by saying, because you see this in the paper there, it says that there are actually there's Mount Kenya region contributes 60% of GDP, only 20% of its people of the GCP now is recorded, and I think the reference even made by Senator Halwale that there's that disparity between earlier claims, and I believe that there has been those claims from Mount Kenya. But what I want to clear here is that I think this the analyst who did this has got the basis of his economics wrong. Wrong in this sense, because you see, Sam, there is the index that you use, for example, when people ask what is the happiest city to live in, for example, in the world. That does not necessarily mean that the richest city is the happiest. You know, I mean, and that's why there is the introduction of the element of per capita, because that individualizes then the effect of the production to the individual, but not necessarily as a contributor to the gross domestic product. I mean, you find that, for example, large economies, and that's why you find this actually contradicting that perception that why wouldn't Nairobi be on top of the list, as Senator Halwale was saying, because this GCP, the reason why you see Nyandarua is there, and they have put it here very well, is it's bounty harvests. You know, what is the effect of that to the individual per capita, and it brings more individualized benefit. Otherwise, if we are to go to necessarily what is the GDP, or how do you get to GDP, it's really a product of many things, from investments, total number of transactions, number of exports, or the amount of exports less the imports, and so on, and that's how you get to calculate GDP. And so it makes sense anyway, but I don't want to introduce that argument here. Okay. One of these fine days when we have time, let's make this a topic of discussion. And some of us who are believers in some of the major doctrines of the economies of countries and counties, then we can have that debate. Now you're asking this question on
bottom 8.
On the bottom 8, and this is where then we would agree with especially what Senator Halwale was saying, that largely most of the county governors that were elected failed to seize the moment and to start projects, investments, and incentives within their counties that would target their people and improve their livelihoods, but specific and unique to the needs and demands of that county and the people. And that's why you find, for example, a governor living in a county, and I want to just collectively mention, like the ones you mentioned, the ones that were earlier marginalized, receiving his first disbursements from government, and probably then focuses all concentration on, let's say, for example, going to build new county headquarters and tall buildings, and this is the headquarter for livestock, that is the headquarter for lands, and so you find maybe they'll invest 80% of all the money they have in putting up structures, superstructures of concrete, will not necessarily affect the lives of their people. And that is why they would still rank the lowest in this GCP, which you would put a stroke and say it has got some relationship to what I said earlier, which is, you would be asking, which is the happiest county to live in if you're looking at it from that global perspective. So if for a governor who at that time got elected and knows the unique needs of his people and how to lift his people up, because if for example you made me the governor of a county like Marsabit, like Isiolo, like some of those counties, my first priority would not to go and compete with the Pinnacle building in Nairobi and to put the tallest building in the country. I would have an approach that would first lift the basics of my people, and I believe that's the disparity. I would want to urge, as I conclude, that it would not make sense that we have parameters as we have right now in the CRA formula that target these marginalized counties specifically, including the equalization fund, although we know it has had its its own challenges. But we have like the poverty index. We have an index that have specifically looked at counties with a large land mass and so on. All these incentives should have been utilized to see the livelihoods of people specific to their basic daily needs. What you would say you'd lift how they're able to put bread on their table on a daily basis.
Still, because of their the situation, for instance, we're talking about the northeastern, you know how the weather is. It's a dry land, it's very expansive. Rivers are far, so for people to access even water services, it's a challenge. So how do you boost such kind of counties? Yes, you'll get an allocation based on your poverty, based on your land mass, but how do you put that to your advantage despite the challenges that you face as a county?
I hope that the chair of the Commission of Revenue Allocation will have an opportunity to listen to this conversation on YouTube. I want to appeal to her, Jen Kiringai, your position is so sensitive that you cannot start making this particular research, if I allow me to call it a research, authoritative, to the extent that you are hitting at the fact that this revelation is going to drive how shareable revenue is going to be given to counties. Extremely dangerous. This report is speaking to the productivity of individuals in counties, and they are saying people living in Nyandarua are slightly more productive than people living in another county. If somebody is productive, that does not mean that is the basis for the county to receive less money simply because somebody in that county is more productive than the other one.
And that's what I'm asking.
Yes.
How do you ensure a county like Mandera, because it's the last one, it's number 47.
Yes.
How does it ensure that the little resources it receives is used to promote productivity of that county despite the challenges that they face?
Yes, I was coming to that. I wanted to remind the chair of the CRA that over and above the articles that speak to shareable revenue, also the drafters of the constitution remembered what you have raised about Mandera, and then they brought in the issue of equalization fund. Equalization is to make sure that even if a county is seen to be productive, but it still doesn't have electricity, still doesn't have good roads, still doesn't have water, they are given money from the equalization kitty to ensure that they are brought almost to the same level. I mean, a place like Mandera, for example, will need 50 years to reach the standard that you find in Kiambu. Not because the people of Mandera don't work very hard, but because successive governments from independence have ignored Mandera. And this is exactly why we brought devolution.
Okay.
Yeah.
Senator Kajwang.
This is just a reflection of sessional paper number 10, which concentrated in certain high potential areas.
Yes.
And that's why you're seeing that the per capita output of certain areas is significantly higher. It does not mean that that wealth is shared equally by the people living in those areas.
Right.
You might find in some counties there are huge ranches or conservancies or huge production units for horticulture or agriculture that are owned by a single individual. So the per capita capita aspect might paint a different picture.
Okay.
But I think for me what I find compelling is what the nation has reported, where it's talking about the share of GDP, which then breaks it all down. But you asked a question, what do we do about the Manderas and the counties that are registering very low per capita output? And this GCP seems to be a measure of output. It's a measure of productivity. When we did the equalization fund and put it in the constitution, and then subsequently we in parliament went and sabotaged it and included even areas that in the conventional sense were not considered to be marginalized, it was supposed to ensure that there was some uniformity, or that we were going to uplift the areas that had been neglected for a long time. But the equalization fund was supposed to go into things like water and provision of certain basic infrastructural facilities in those areas. But this country had a better master plan for uplifting the Northern Kenya region. We had the LAPSSET program, which was supposed to open up particularly Northern Kenya. And by opening up Northern Kenya through roads, through rails, through pipelines, through resort cities, through airports, we were going to spur and boost the productivity of those areas. I can tell you it's going to be very difficult for the county governors to spur output with the kind of allocations that they are getting. Because devolution is turning out to be a system that now, governors are becoming payroll masters rather than development architects. And in fact, it has been made worse with the presidential order. That executive order, and I know sometimes because of the handshake, we all want to say that it is a good thing. It is a very dangerous thing to devolution. At the national level, it makes sense. But when you start building structures that are parallel to devolution all the way to the county, where you have a county commissioner sitting to discuss development within that county, and the governor is not part of that conversation, where you have a county commissioner who can talk about multi-billion roads in a county, multi-billion water projects in a county, multi-billion health projects in a county, in a conversation where the governor is not present. We are kind of short-circuiting devolution through that executive order. So the state still has a responsibility. The central government that remains with 85% of national resources still has a responsibility to make sure that the people of Mandera, West Pokot, Turkana, Wajir and Kilifi are uplifted. This cannot be left in the hands of county governors with the meager resources that they currently manage.
Right, of course you can get the full details about that story on the Daily Nation as well as on the Standard. The Daily Nation is on page 6, so you'll see that agriculture appears to be contributing to the GDP more than anything else. We just hope that the food security agenda can focus into that and grow it. I want to focus on a story that came in yesterday, striking nurses defy Uhuru's return to work order. You recall that press conference by the president alongside the Council of Governors chairperson Wycliffe Oparanya and the deputy Governor Mwangi wa Iria, and the president directing them that they have to return to work by Friday or else they will face the sack. But now the nurses are saying, our employer is not the national government, our employer is not the Council of Governors, our employer is the counties.
Sam, just allow me a quick one. I'll take a mission on that.
You always have something else to say.
I just sorry. No, it's because you said something important there when you're closing on that topic, and you said agriculture seems to be the only one sector reported uniquely as the greatest contributor to our GDP, and I wanted to just make that one parting shot on that. Okay. That it is surprising. It is actually worrisome if you see that it is so glaring to us as a country that our strength is in agriculture, that the way we would move this country and our people forward in our economy is by specifically focusing on how we would improve the lot of people who then are behind this strong sector. And for example, you remember us discussing here the other day the maize scandal, the peril of maize farmers, the hue and cry of coffee farmers and tea farmers. And so you'd be asking yourself, and we ask ourselves as patriots, that then what are we doing to ourselves if we have been told, we can see the writing is on the wall, that unless we concentrate, unless we specifically target improving agriculture, the people behind it who are our farmers, ensure that we mechanize, modernize, introduce technology, export finished goods which are produced out of agriculture, then it would be a strong economy. That's how China became one of the biggest world players. I mean, they harness their strength and then they go conquer the world with the strength that they have. Okay. That's why Russia is a mega power with its gas and petroleum. And so what he's saying is that I just wanted to make that short, that we should then refocus and ask ourselves as a country, are we on the right path? Are we doing the right things so that we can be a modern, stronger and better economy? Not forgetting that actually in the latest world report, save for Nigeria and South Africa and the oil in Nigeria, Kenya would be the biggest economy in Africa.